Hello everybody. Now in today's video we will create this jelly-like simulation that you see here. Now I'm back to Blender. We have our default cube. We won't delete it this time. Let's pair it and let's go to geometry nodes. Let's expand this section to get some more space and let's click on new. And we will have the group input and the output. Now our starting object will be a cube and we need a volume cube. So I will search volume cube and we will need this. There is also another node, and it is called mesh to volume. And if I simply put it over here, our cube will be transformed into a volume. But what we need is a volume cube and not a mesh to volume. There is some difference between the two. The biggest difference is the volume cube is actually a collection of many small cube volumes. And the mesh to volume is actually one cube transformed into a volume. And so you see there is something called resolution in the volume cube. However, in the mesh to volume, the resolution is missing because this is only one cube. And there is some sort of an issue that we will face with the mesh to volume. We will see what is that. And so for the time being, let me just plug the volume cube here. And we get a volume cube. It looks almost similar. And now what we will do is we will also convert the volume to mesh. So volume to mesh. And in the process, what we have is we have some bevel. Now let's not focus on that. What we need to do is we need to take care of the density. Now both the mesh to volume and the volume cube has a density, but in the mesh to volume, the density value is a float. However, in this case, the density value is actually a vector. It is a float, but you see it is a quadrilateral and here it is a circle. So it is actually representing the density of all the small cubes that is present in the volume cube. And this is something that we need. So what we want to do is we want to plug a noise texture here. And now you see some small depression kind of thing, some small cavity here. So if I change from 3D to 4D, and if I now play with the W value, what will happen is basically there is some sort of a mild animation. What we can do is we can add a scene time here. And if we play, um, this is what will happen. Uh, this is not like a jelly, but we are going there. We can at least agree on that. Now, what I can do is I can increase the scale, or maybe I can decrease it to something like 2. It will get more smoother like that. And the detail I can increase or decrease. I think we can keep these things as it is for now. What we really need is something that will carve out some of the material. And the best way to do that is either using a color ramp or there is another node which works similarly. I think we have discussed this before. This is the map range. So what we can do is we can increase this value and you can see that some parts of it are being carved out. And initially we will use resolution 32, but later we can also make it 64. And now if I play this, what will happen is basically it is looking like some sort of a square jelly. We can also do one more thing. After the volume to mesh, we can add a set shade smooth. And our jelly will be more smooth now. And let's do one thing. Let me just carve out more. And this is how it looks like now. Not bad, I will say. Now we can also use the map range and both of these nodes are very similar. So what I will do is I will plug the factor into the value, the result into the density. And here we have the from max to min to max. So if I just increase the from min value to let's say zero point 0.3, maybe 0.4, we will have a similar kind of an effect. Now a square jelly is also fine, but how can we make it spherical? That is the real question now. So to make it spherical, what we have to do is we have to use another texture called a gradient texture. Now noise is also a texture. Basically this is purely noise. Now a gradient texture, as we all know, is something that moves linearly. However, we can also change the orientation to other things. For example, we will need the spherical. Let's unplug it. And if I just plug the color with the density, we will get a sphere. Same for the factor. We can use the other things and it will work differently. Radial basically, if I just remove, if I just make it a mute, so radial will work like this. Basically, radially it will take a line and radially it will change the value. So and so for other things, but for today's video, a diagonal will look like this. Let's take the spherical for today. And so we get a sphere, and we have the scene time, noise texture, and map range for the cavity and everything. Now the real question is how do we connect these things? And I hope now you get an idea why we cannot use the mesh to volume. The reason simply is, so for example, the noise texture and the gradient texture, all of these have a vector output. And we will not be able to plug the vector output with the density. So there is an issue. This node input does not support fields. So this is the real thing. So we have to connect these two somehow. And the best way to do that is using a mix node. So there is something called a mix color. And we have two factors A and B. And yeah, so this is what it is. So I will plug the result with a B and we don't see much effect. The reason is we have to increase the factor value. So basically the factor is what is the importance of the basically the field B versus the field A. If the factor is more close towards 1, there will be more of field B. And if it is more towards A, there will be more of field A. Now there is nothing in the field A as of now. And so what we can do is basically we can plug the gradient texture to the factor itself. So the gradient texture, what this will do is it will basically create a smooth value between the factor from 0 to 1. And now the gradient texture will entirely set that this cube, this is basically, it is more like a cube or it is more like a sphere. So what we can do is we can basically drag field A and use another color ramp here. And in this color ramp, right now it is a smooth texture of colors as we can see. We have our gradient texture here. What we will simply do is we will drag our gradient texture to our factor and now we have a smooth sphere, but this will become a circle if I simply drag our black color. If I just remove it, it is a smooth sphere. If I am here, now it is a cube. Now if I simply zoom out, there will be a zone where it is becoming from a cube to a sphere. So this is that zone. And now this is becoming a sphere. So what we have to do is we have to make it totally black. Let's remove it. Let me just remove the white. And this will be a totally black. Let's drag the color. Okay, I think so. I removed the mix. Yeah. So we will drag it now here. And from this one, we will just remove the white. It is totally black. So the black will make it a sphere, and the map range and the noise texture will add the cavity, and the gradient texture with the spherical will make it a sphere. Basically, the factor and the A is making it a sphere, and the B is making it a cavity. If we remove the above portion, it will be a cube with cavity, but now it is more like a jelly, is what I will say. And yeah, here also instead of color ramp, we can also use the map bridge. So what I think we can do is we can decrease the value from zero point 0.4 to zero point 0.3. I think we don't need that much cavity. And the scale, I think we can make it 1. Yeah, this looks more like a jelly, what I will say. Yeah, this is what I want. So we have our jelly. Now the remaining things are very simple. We have to add a material and we have to add the colors and remaining things. This is very simple. I will just do it very quickly. So we have a material. Now let's go to shader, shading. And here, let me just make transmission as 1. And let me also give a roughness value of 0.2. Let me give an interesting color, something like uh, something like this. I think roughness can be more, something like zero point 0.4, and IOR can be less, I think so, something like this. So now if I change from EV to cycles, it will look better. Let's also take a look how it looks like in the EV in the render mode. Uh, doesn't look good, I will say. Maybe zero point 0.1 was better, zero point 0.2. Now let's change it to cycles. Cycles with uh, let's say 4 and denoise and max samples 16. Something that we always do, we bring the light at the center. Let's see if we do that, how it looks like. So 0. Oh, interesting, interesting. Let's make it, it looks like something like a bioluminescent organism, something like that. Maybe a bigger value is better. Yeah, let's go back to 1000. Let me make the world as black. Yeah, very interesting. Maybe not black, little bit of a blue. Something like this. Something like underwater ocean kind of thing. Here maybe. And yeah, something like this. Now if I render, how will it look like? Let's take a look at once. It will take some time, of course. And yeah, this is it. Very good, I will say. So how does it look, folks? You tell me. And also, that is it for this video. And if you have learned something new, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you soon with very interesting videos like this. So, see ya.